Welcome to Profi Plays. This is Profi, and today we're going to be picking up the story of Mese Kinson. If you would like to get caught up on what all has happened, because this is episode 13, which is sure to be lucky, um, go ahead and check out the playlist this is part of. You can find that through my channel. Also, there's probably a card a few seconds ago that is available to link to that playlist. When we last left Mese here on the island of Piathos, let me go and zoom into that island. There we are, the island of Piathos, the capital of this particular sector. Uh, we had some big stuff happen last time. Specifically, we had the leader, right, of this planet died, right? And we also had at the same time, right, the leader of his advisory council was also missing at the same time. At this point, we know the successor. Is Richie Rifost, an advisory council member known for being relatively cold in terms of personality. So not super charismatic, but neither was his predecessor as far as that goes. We're going to pick up here using Covetous Poet. I want to find out what is our challenge scene going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and roll my 2d6. It's a 9. That tells us what type of challenge scene it's going to be. And challenge scene here. I forgot I rolled. 9. Getting old. 9, yes. Okay. So 9 on our challenge scene chart is to avoid danger or deal with threats. So that's the challenge. So we're going to try to avoid danger or deal with threats. Now, one thing that we mentioned last time was that we want to know what is it exactly that this rogue AI is doing, because we're trying to convince the leadership of this planet that it's something they actually need to deal with, because it seems that they are totally in a state of denial about that. Right, but we don't actually know what it's doing. Right, so let's go ahead and roll for the plot device. The plot device here. So another one of the elements is just for inspiration. 879. So plot device 879 is going to be, here we go, underground civilization. Ooh, I like that. That's cool. Right, so underground civilization, some group has created an entire society in a hidden location, such as underground in a cloaked planet or within a pocket dimension. We've not really done interdimensional stuff here in this series, so I don't know that that would necessarily be something that would fit thematically with what we've been doing. But yeah, it's possible. 812 as our thing, right? So thing 812 is a splinter group. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're getting kind of. I always find it interesting when these random things start to kind of coalesce in a way. Okay, our action 703, just propose. And then we have a location, 836. 836 is a stream. And then the last thing we need is opposition. Should flip back here, that's just a D100. And there we go. 70 is 70. 70 gives us sadistic aliens or a criminal kingpin. So sadistic aliens or a criminal kingpin. I'm just making notes here. And then we'll get rolling. Because technically we've been rolling. All right. So, to set the scene, last time we had Mese and his friend Mara, who has come with him from the place that they started. I believe it was Hadarana, where they first learned about the fact that there is this rogue AI that's causing problems here. The planet here, the problems are not so obvious, but there's a sense of weirdness that as things feel emptier than it ought to be. It's very possible that maybe some people realized that there were problems happening and started to leave. that could happen. At the very least, we know now that the leadership is apparently under attack in some way. Whether this has anything to do with the rogue AI or not, we don't know. Um, we've not discovered that. And so I will say that my own personal suspicion is that it is something to do with that. But anyway, so we're supposed to avoid danger or deal with a threat in some way. So here's what I'm thinking. So last time we broke into this government building because there's some commotion around it. We were going there to try to make some kind of case that they should deal with this rogue AI. We really don't have much evidence that they should. And when we got there, we found out that the leader was dead. We already knew that who we suspect might be an extremely corrupt leader of the advisory council, was also missing. Uh, I had assumed that the leader of the planet had disappeared, the guy, but now I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. It feels like there's somebody else that's pulling the strings here potentially. This could possibly be the rogue AI itself. So I need to think about what it is that Mies wants to do in this situation right now. Right. So what we've realized is that we do need some kind of evidence if we're going to go to, is it Richie, Richie Rifost, the new, I guess, interim leader of the planet, and try to convince him that they have to do something, right, about this rogue AI. We need to actually have some kind of cases to what the rogue AI is doing that's a problem. Because I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, if I have a computer virus and if all the computer virus does is take up a couple of megabytes on my hard drive, I don't particularly care. But on the other hand, if it is actually responsible for causing problems, right, in that case, then we need to deal with it potentially. So denial is not the way to go. So what we want to do is figure out what is the problem that's actually being caused. Okay. Now here is where I'm thinking I'm going to start bringing in some of this inspiration. Okay. So I think that so we want to avoid danger or deal with a threat of some kind. So my thought is this. A lot of the research we've been doing has been done via computer, which is probably unwise as that goes. We've already established Mies is not a computer guy. I think he literally has no ranks at all in computer. Computer, here we are, about the center of the screen. Yeah, nothing. Nothing. And just so you know, in the Cepheus system, which I'm using, if you don't have any points in something, you take in -3 to your roll, which is significant, right? So just to lay out the system for those who may just be tuning in who aren't as familiar with this, it's a 2d6 system. So you roll 2d6, right? Then you add whatever modifiers are appropriate. So your modifiers is generally going to be right, one of your characteristic scores, which I can show you those here in a minute. There they are. Right, so you have strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, education, and social. So things in some ways kind of similar to the standard 6 stats, but changed slightly to reflect the sci-fi setting. And the meaning of them is a little bit different as well. Right, so here average is going to be about a 7 instead of the 10 you might see in, say, certain fantasy role-playing games. Right, so 12 for Mies right here is actually quite strong. He's quite a strong guy, fairly good dexterity, pretty good endurance as far as that goes. He's not stupid, but he's also not really above average in terms of intelligence or education. Right, so and his social standing, right, is slightly below average, so he can't pull rank in people particularly well. So you do, you roll 2d6, add them together, right? And then add to that the appropriate characteristic modifier as well as the appropriate skill modifier. Because I'm basing this on from Samardin Press, their system reference document for the Cepheus system. Now there are a number of different versions of the system out there. I'm using the system reference document one. Okay, so after adding this all together, your goal typically, if you're doing an average difficulty task, is going to be an 8. Which you know, like if you know statistics at all, we know when you roll 2d6, on average, you're going to get a 7, which means you're going to fail a lot of the time if you don't have some kind of modifier on it. Right. So then it also means like a -3 is huge, right? So if I'm, say, doing some kind of intelligence-based task, which I don't have any skill in, my mod is a +0 from the characteristic, a -3 from the skill. I have to roll like an 11 or a 12, which doesn't happen very often, about a 12th of the time. Right? So this is a world in which you don't really want to do stuff that you aren't trained to do. It's really what it boils down to. Now, we do have this jack of all trades skill. You can see there is a rank in that, and that does lower the penalty, right? So his penalty is it would not be a -3, it'd be a -2, right? So, but still, it's still quite significant. You're talking about having to roll a 10, 11, or 12 on anything that's unskilled. You might say, Profi, aren't you just kind of vamping now? Absolutely, I am. I try to think about what Mies is going to do. All right, so let's focus in on this. So, Mies has figured out, he and Mara figured out that they don't actually have any evidence of anything. The only thing that they know is that they were told that AI is a problem. They've not actually directly seen any issues at all. They haven't found any kind of evidence directly related to AI causing problems. And this is something that's going to be hard for them to gather directly. And it's also hard for them to gather indirectly, for that matter, because he doesn't have the kind of social standing where you can just walk in and ask people to talk to him. Right? So, what we do know, though, is that he has been doing a lot of computer-based research, and I suspect if this rogue AI is keeping an eye on what's happening in the planet-wide networks and the like, this may stand out. So that is what I am going to focus on now. And if that, in fact, that's true, then what we might find is that what's this edit note do? I don't know. Hmm, that's weird. All right, just there's a thing that says edit note. I don't know what it does. So let's go ahead and I'm going to roll on my Oracle table. Nope, that's not the Oracle table. Forward, maybe. Forward. There we go. So I'm going to roll on my yes no table as to whether or not this rogue AI system has become aware of Mies and possibly may do something right to endanger him. So I'm going to say this is very likely. So if I roll 75 or less, the answer is yes. Otherwise, the answer is no. Okay, so I got 58, so that's a yes. So now we know that the rogue AI is aware of Mises' efforts. Okay. And this suggests to me that it's going to start directly counteracting and perhaps even attacking him. Right? So what does this end up looking like? I suspect at the moment that like so what happened, for example, right, to Bruce Kata, the head of the planet? It was an elevator accident. Right, so I'm thinking that that is more or less the way that Rogue AI is working. Rogue AI is not announcing to the world, "Hello, I am Hal, and I'm going to take over." Instead, it's these subtle things that are happening whenever it's feeling under threat at all. Right? We don't actually know what its goal is, as far as that goes. We know what its original goal was, but in terms of its goal now, after it has gone rogue, we don't know. We know that it was originally programmed to shut down the starport. The starport is still active, at least active enough that we could come here without any real problem. So I I don't know. Right. So anyway, so the rogue AI is aware of Misa's efforts. So I think this would be a good time for us to introduce a new NPC, right? Some member perhaps of a splinter group, right, that is part of an underground civilization that perhaps may be aware of and is in some way trying to counteract this AI. That's what I'm thinking right now. Oh, well, that's odd. So there's this like little note area off to the side here that I can type. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that existed. Yeah, that's cool. Learning new things all the time. All right. Is that new? I don't know. All right. So let's go ahead and I want to because what I'm imagining is this is that like Mece and Mara are in a bar or something like that, and they are approached by somebody. Right, so first thing I want to know, this person, are they male? 50-50. 70 is a no. Right, so I'm going to default to a woman because I have a list of women's names. All right, so got the Scamperts. I don't think did I use that name before? I'm not sure. Um, I'm going to skip down a bit. Sarah Lazal. Let's use that one. Right, so we have Sarah Lazal has just appeared. Right. I want to know what Sarah Lazal's kind of role would be before she joined this underground organization. Right, so I have here somewhere. So here, yes. All right, so this random encounter. Let's go ahead and roll D66. I'm gonna read it left to right. 21. 21. So a drunken crew. Okay, let's instead use this as a patron encounter. So a celebrity. Okay, so she's a celebrity. Okay, and what's her skill level at this? D6 minus 3. Oh, okay. Not a very well-known celebrity. So minus 2. All right. All right. So we're talking somebody who she probably like sings karaoke or something like that. It's about that level of celebrity, right? Okay. Nothing wrong with singing karaoke. I've done it once. It was kind of fun, but I'm not going to consider that being in show business, right? Okay. All right. So celebrity minus 2, and I want to know kind of what is her demeanor like. Nope, nope, nope. I don't need that. 58 divided by 2 gives us 29. So 29 on our personality table is droll or romantic. I'm going to be real honest. I don't particularly care for too much romance in my RPGs. Some people love it. I don't. Right, so I think droll perhaps might be more appropriate here. All right. So at the very least, this is what we've got. So what I'm imagining is this. So we are here, right, in a bar, cantina, right, kind of sorts. I'm guessing it's probably fairly empty right now. Well, let's double check that. Right, so is it fairly empty? I'm going to say that's very likely. So 75 or less, it's fairly empty. Yeah, so 40, it is a fairly empty bar at the moment because the planet feels somewhat empty. And then they're approached by this woman, right, Sarah Lazal. Let's see what her attitude is like. I think she's considering them a friend because I think she has also become aware. Oh dear, 3. Um, this might end up being very bad. So she's friendly, 3, but she's going to be evasive. Interesting. This may make it difficult to move the story forward if that's true. All right. So she comes up to us, right, and informs us. Does she tell us that like I'm imagining like the scene right where and that is literally what solo role playing is. Right? So imagining she comes up to us and she tries to pull the come with me if you want to live right kind of scenario. Right? So is that what happens? Is that her approach? I'd say very likely. 74, yes. Right? So she comes, come with me if you want to live. I want to know how trustworthy we think she is. So is this somebody that we will in fact go with? I'm kind of inclined to say yes, actually. One, because that moves things forward. And two, Mies has no reason to be suspicious of her as far as this goes. Right? I mean, she is a minor celebrity. Once you explain who she is, some people might know her. Sorry, that's one of my favorite lines. I haven't watched very much Big Bang Theory, but that's such a great line. It's minor celebrity. Once you explain who he is, some people would know him. So yeah, so Sarah Lazal is that way. Right? Once you explain who she is, some people would know her. So that being the case, right, it seems to me that she's going to come in. She's going to be, I imagine, like dressed very kind of like a fantasy rogue, right? So like a cloak, that kind of thing. So I'm imagining somebody trying to conceal her face from people, right? Saying, "Okay, I need you to come with me. Come with me if you want to live." Mece and Mara look at each other. They really don't have any other leads at this point, but they know that there's weird stuff going on. So they decide, okay, they're going to follow. Now this planet is has a very high law level, which means that basically weapons of any kind are illegal. As a result, Mese is not carrying any weapons. Right? So he is somewhat aware of that. On the other hand, I'm guessing Sarah Lazal is probably not like a huge person. I'm going to say, okay, like is Sarah Lazal smaller than Mese significantly? Extremely likely. This is a 95% chance. Let's go and roll it. 70, yeah. Yeah, so he basically is trusting the fact that if necessary, right, he could take her in unarmed combat. Right, so there's no real reason to believe that's going to be necessary. Plus, they outnumber her. Right, so they decide, yeah, they're going to go ahead and follow her. Right, so she leads them through parts of the city. They wind through streets, what have you, until they find a stream is part of. A stream is one of my inspirations. Yeah, so I think she leads them down to come running through the city. There's a river, and because this is such an advanced society, the river is certainly kind of well regulated in its banks. Basically, it has a concrete riverbed that it runs through at this point, because that was the way that they could kind of control it, so it wasn't creating erosion problems or things like this, right? So they come down to the river, right? And she has a boat ready for them. It's a very simple boat. It's not particularly technological. In fact, it's notably so. I'm going to say, like, is it? I think it's just straight up a rowboat. Is it a rowboat? I think it's a rowboat. That seems likely. So I'm going to go ahead and roll just in case. So I'm going to say it's very likely, 75% chance it's just a rowboat. Oh, it's a 93. So it's not just a rowboat. So okay, so it's probably some kind of simple motorboat then. Right. So it does in fact run on an engine, right? But the controls are notably manual. Right. So they hop in, right? Start up the motor, right? And it has kind of that, you know, lawnmower engine kind of sound that a lot of boat motors have, right? And then they head down the river, right? So I'm trying to think of where she's going to take them. I feel like out of the city doesn't seem completely likely. And I guess we can check that. Is she taking them out of the city? That seems unlikely. So it's a 25 or less. That's where she's taking them. 38. No, she's not taking them out of the city. Instead, I think it's more likely that there is some kind of island or something that is going to be somewhere in the river here, right? That she's going to. So this is an island that is generally ignored by people. It's not like there are bridges to it or anything like that. It's largely left natural. That is what I'm imagining is happening here. Right, so she takes them there. Right. Uh, Time of day, I feel like we're probably in afternoon, right? So is it afternoon? Just check 50-50. Okay, no, it's not. In fact, that's doubles. Right, so it's not afternoon. So I'm going to say that this is early evening then. Right, right. But then something happens. We have a mid-scene interruption. That is what happens when you roll doubles on the yes/no table. That's a couple cases where mid-scene interruptions happen. You can see the system suggests when you roll doubles on the yes/no table, when you roll a 2 or 12 on the conversation chart, when your PCs enter a new location, or anytime you feel it's appropriate for the scene, right? And then the second you feel stuck or confused about where a scene should go next, just throw in an interruption, right? So I think we're going to throw in an interruption here. This is on the basis of doubles. So let's go ahead and roll and see what that uh, is 9. Mid-scene interruption number 9, an NPC the PC's no shows up. Oh, that's a fairly short list. I love that idea. All right, so we don't, I don't think we know anyone on this planet. At least not that we know of, right? So we have here like a few people that we do know. George Waters, the crazy guy, put Meese in the hospital. Oh, wait, this is planets ago. We have Dane Wright. Dane Wright was the leader of all the kind of the gas planet where they're investigating the murders and got accused of murder. I, I think those are really the people we know We've actually met and talked to and given names to. It's going to be one of the two of them, then, I suspect. All right. So 50-50. Is it George Warders? 48, yes. So George Warders, the crazy guy. All right. So NBC, the PC's No, shows up. This is George Warders, who's former Navy, right, and had some kind of, it was supposed to be a weapon of mass destruction or something like that. I believe some kind of chemical weapon, if I recall correctly, that he exposed Mese to. Mese managed to survive thanks to Mara taking him to a hospital. Uh, okay, so George Waters is there, right, which is interesting. So he must have also managed to, catch transports to get here as well, right? So I'm wondering, what is his attitude here? Like, they don't have a great history, but my suspicion is he's actually going to be more on the friendly side at this point. So that's how I think that he's going to approach it. So I'm going to go ahead and roll as if this is friendly, somebody who's an acquaintance. 8 is what we've got here. So he's credulous. That's not particularly useful. So I'm going to say he's, between helpful and friendly, just to, just to put it that way. Okay, right. So George Waters shows up. At this point, Mises, of course, not too keen on this, nor is Mara. I think Mara is actually more inclined to, I don't know that flip out is the right word. I don't think that's really her personality, that she's grumpy or smug. So I imagine her being like, "What are you doing here?" Right, that kind of attitude, where Mises just Mises is a very quiet guy. He's very uncomfortable with the fact that George is here. Right? So George explains, right, that he is now, right, come in here to this group here, uh, this splinter group that is trying to deal with a problem that is here, right, on this planet that he's been made aware of. I want to know, did the Navy make him aware of this? Because this is odd because like he was kind of a terrorist. Right? So I wonder, how did he find out about this? I'm just curious, right? So I'm looking at our opposition, sadistic alien or criminal kingpin. Maybe that's it, right? But yeah, I think okay. So it's not opposition, but rather this is a connection we have. So he has connections, right, within various opponents of the existing government that has informed him that there is a problem here, right? And the problem that we have is that this rogue, I think this is what I'm thinking. Is the rogue AI just killing people just kind of at random? I think this is very likely. So I'm going to go ahead and roll that. Oh, 3. Yes. That's a yes. That's a very significant yes. Right. So so yeah, the problem is that this rogue AI is like arranging the deaths of people. Seemingly, I think like is there a pattern to it? I don't think there is. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. I think it's unlikely that there's a pattern that we've established yet. Yeah, 68. So there's no pattern here. It seems to be roughly at random. And I think that fits with some of what we've established in terms of the backstory for the plot. And that is that it was really the homeless population on the planet that was made aware of this first. And I suspect they were the first ones to see casualties. And nobody really thinks much of that because, well, you're homeless. You're always exposed. You probably aren't eating very well, and so on. You might be addicted to various substances, right? So there are all kinds of possible explanations for why these people are dying. But news had spread right amongst the homeless population that this was different. This was not like this was not normal, uh, right? So and it felt like they were in some sense being targeted. And so people were dying much more than what you would normally expect. But now things have, what we've realized is that there have been all kinds of victims all around. I don't know how many victims there have been, um, but at least enough, right, for people to start noticing. And I'm going to say that's probably why things feel empty, is that a lot of people have left because they realize that there's something not right. that is happening here. Like accidents are happening more than they should. People are getting sick more than they should. Things are not working the way that they should, right? And as a result, right, we're seeing significant, not necessarily massive, right, but significant casualties happening, right? So this is really the issue: is that there's something going on this planet, right, that is killing people. Now the question is, I want to know: does George Waters and Sarah Lazal, this celebrity and this former Navy, so we have the karaoke singer and the Navy turned terrorist. Great partnership. But do they have anyone in their organization that is actually really good at computers? That's what I want to know. So I think I'm not sure. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and call it likely. So 75% chance. 19, yes, they do have somebody. So they have somebody that's really good at computers. Is it a man? Roll 50-50. 83 it is not, so it's a woman. So, oh, that's cool. Okay, I was just flipping them. Okay. I don't know the controls for this program very well. Right, so we have a woman here. Her name is Sharakali. She looks more like Shira. So Shira Kali is some kind of computer person. I want to see what are the terms we use here. So some kind of technician or something like that. Yeah, I think we're going to use that. Yeah, so we're going to say that she's a technician. Right. And I'm going to go ahead and roll this, and I'm going to say her minimum is 0. She might possibly have more than that. Nope, 0. Okay. So she's the computer person among the splinter group. Right, so we've just learned what the problem is. So, so here on this island, I do want to ask them some more questions, right? So, have they identified that it's probably the rogue AI that's doing this? Left to right? 20, yes. Right. So they have identified that they believe it's the rogue AI that is killing people off in no discernible pattern, right? And therefore, it's something that we have to deal with. I want to know, have they made any attempts, right, to convince the authorities of this? It seems very likely. Actually, it seems extremely likely. 95%. Yes. Right. So they have already tried to convince the authorities. Were they successful? I think this is actually very likely. Because I think this is going to build a story that we want. 92, no, they weren't. Okay. So they tried to convince the authorities, which at the time was Kata, as well as, oh, it was the guy that went vanishing. Janand? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, Johnny Janand. Um, they tried to convince them that this was a problem they had to deal with, but they failed. That is, they couldn't convince them this is actually an issue. Maybe they tried too early. I suspect that this is probably because at that time it was just a bunch of homeless people saying, "Oh, Bob died the other night." Well, okay, yes, homeless people are dying. We don't necessarily expect the authorities to necessarily do anything about this. But so I think that might be the problem they ran into. But now things have spread more to the point where even the leadership has been targeted. Now, the interesting thing to me about this, right, is that I had assumed that the leadership was targeted by the AI because they were going to start taking steps about it. Um, we don't actually have evidence as the case. Maybe it's true, but we just don't know. We just don't know. We don't have that evidence. Okay, so that's good for us to know. All right. So I think at this point, is this a good place to end the scene? Maybe like we have relocated somewhere where we are kind of out of the reach of what we'd expect the AI would be able to influence any, at least directly. Uh, We've made connections, right, with this splinter group, including with George Waters of all people, right? And we also now have a few new contacts, right? We have Sarah Lazal, or the celebrity, who is apparently a contact person for the Splinter Group, as well as Shira Colley, right, the computer person for the Splinter Group. And I think that that is maybe where I want to call it for now. And so we've made these connections. So the question is, right, are we going to be able to be successful either with dealing with the AI ourselves, which might be possible now that we have a computer person on board, right? Or are we going to be successful in convincing Richie Riffost that the authorities need to do something, right, about this rogue AI? All right, so that is where I'm going to end things here. Um, Thank you for watching as we are listening, however it is you consume this. Um, and we will see what happens next time here on Profi Plays. So this is Profi signing off.